Alright, so I'm talking about kind of like how feasible it is for the U.S. to transition completely from fossil fuels to renewable energy. So in terms of feasibility, I kind of focus on three different aspects of it that have to work together for to be implemented, and so that would be like the scientific aspect, the economic aspect, and the political aspect. So all these have to work together for uh, renewable energy to be a feasible solution. So the main focus of the scientific feasibility is the intermittency problem. I'm not going to talk about this too much, because I think a lot of you guys have heard this before, but a big problem with renewable energies is that they're not a constant source of energy versus coal or oil. You can burn at a constant rate as long as you keep adding more to it. When the sun goes down, you don't have access to solar power. When the wind dies down, wind energy, obviously, when rivers slow down, hydroelectric energy, so on and so on. And so one of the widely accepted solutions to this problem, which is a big investment, would be a smart grid, kind of over here, like the national super electric grid, basically, where we kind of overhaul the nation's current electricity grid and would substitute for a more efficient, more connected grid that responds to different areas. And so the benefit to this is it's more efficient because we're overhauling the entire grid in the first place. And it's estimated that the U.S. loses spends about $200 million a year, or that's the highest estimate, based off of inefficiencies from the current electrical grid and money lost from blackouts and so on. And the problem is the upfront cost for a grid such as this is estimated to be trillions of dollars, which would be quite the investment upfront. Even if it's a long-term solution, it's hard to get that implemented because it's such a long-term investment. And to do with that is also the battery solution, and they go hand in hand because by having batteries, as you can see here, during the day, the windmills or solar panels, whatever renewable energy resource you're using, can fill the batteries and power the houses. So at night, for instance, when there's no more solar panels working, the energy from the battery can be used to power the houses of the cities and so on, and then it gets recharged the next day. So talking about economic feasibility is basically focused on the cost of renewable energy. And so although reports more recently have concluded that to stabilize like the greenhouse gas emissions, it's possible that can be done at relatively low cost. That being said, when you really focus on the details of making that happen, such as delays in developing and actually implementing this technology, the cost can be exponentially higher. And so, as you see here, the International Energy Agency estimated that it costs $44 trillion to transfer from fossil fuels to low carbon sources of energy between now and 2050. So obviously, this is a huge upfront investment that would take a long time to actually have it pay for itself. And even with all these estimates in mind, it's important to keep in mind what Robert Pindyck said, he was a professor of economics at MIT, and he says that attempts to make decisions about climate change based on cost-benefit analysis are doomed to fail because we don't know the costs and we don't know the benefits for sure. All we can do is speculate. We don't really know what's going to happen. And so that's one of the big obstacles that you have to face in terms of the economic aspect of this. But the economic aspect can be implemented without the political side as well. And so the problem we have here is renewable energy policy is essentially political suicide for those who support it. And so basically what you can see here is over the past couple of years, what's happened. This represents oil subsidies for the U.S. And so as you can see here, it's estimated that the U.S. spends anywhere between 20 to 50 billion a year with tax cuts and subsidies for oil companies, which is why oil in the U.S. is so much cheaper than, say, Europe, where it's at least twice as much, if not more. And this is a problem because even when politicians want to support renewable energies, the idea of removing subsidies just completely takes away their political power because the idea that you're investing in long-term solutions where there's no tangible benefits for another 50 years is hard to run on a re-election campaign for, essentially. And so as you can see here, it's probably hard for you guys to read. For instance, one of them is the president's proposal to eliminate some oil, gas, and coal subsidies, and Congress shot it down almost immediately just because it's not feasible. It doesn't. It's hard. They can't get reelected with that idea, especially when you keep in mind that, like I said, these are long-term effects. And in the United States right now, senior citizens are the most powerful and influential voting demographic, and so they don't really want to go against that. And so basically, in conclusion, we have a lot of questions that need to be answered. How do we choose to tackle the intermittency problem? How do we invest in renewable energy infrastructure without immediately taking out the subsidies from fossil fuels and immediately skyrocketing the oil price for Americans? And also, how do we get politicians to act when attempting to remove oil subsidies is such a dangerous move as a politician? And I think the main thing, if anything, that I want people to take away from this, spoiler. The main thing that I want people to take away from this is that it's a chain, and so basically, it works from the politician down to the economic aspect, and down into the scientific technology aspect. And so, like I said, like the doctor from MIT said, if the idea is that people will eventually support it in the same way that people will buy health insurance in the investment that they'll pay it off if they ever get sick in the future. And so, in the same way, the chance that a catastrophic outcome could happen in the environment, that should be enough eventually to motivate people to invest in things to reduce or slow down climate change. So yeah, basically the main point is it comes down to everyday citizens. If we want things to change, we have to elect politicians who will make this their goal, and then the rest will follow suit. So yeah, dedication page.
Dedication.